Welcome to the debate. When we think of a restricted film, we usually picture, a heavy, dramatic stamp of banned from some authoritarian censor board.
Right, a very visceral image of power.
Exactly. But today, the mechanism of suppressing a narrative might look more like, an endless buffering screen or a geo-blocked streaming link. We are looking at Marina Daniels' research on two highly controversial political films, The Apprentice and The BB Files. I argue that political elites deliberately wield legal and structural power to censor these challenging narratives and, maintain cultural dominance.
And my position is that framing this as a monolithic elite censorship completely oversimplifies how media works today. I mean, what we are actually seeing is a combination of corporate market forces, platform risk aversion, and the enduring agency of independent filmmakers.
Well, I think the evidence for deliberate top-down suppression is right there in the immediate reactions to these films. Like, right before the 2024 election, Donald Trump actively threatened to sue director Ali Abbasi over The Apprentice.
Yeah, he did.
And similarly, Benjamin Netanyahu went to court attempting to block the BB Files from screening in Toronto. So these aren't just abstract market forces. These are direct, targeted legal threats from highly powerful figures attempting to silence critical narratives before the public can consume them.
Okay, yes, those politicians absolutely pushed back with legal threats, but an attempted lawsuit does not equate to absolute elite censorship.
How so?
Because despite that pushback, The Apprentice still premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and Alexis Bloom, the director of the BB Files, she explicitly noted that her film was widely pirated and viewed anyway.
Right, pirated.
Exactly. Think of it like a leaky dam. Politicians can try to plug individual holes with cease and desist letters, but they cannot stop the massive river of independent digital media. The art still escapes.
I hear that, but a leaky dam still holds back the main current of the river, right? Escaping through the underground channels of piracy isn't exactly a victory for free expression.
You think it's just a symptom?
Yeah, it is a symptom of structural suppression. And this brings us to Antonio Gramsci's concept of cultural hegemony, which Daniel's research utilizes. Cultural hegemony isn't about men in smoky rooms confiscating film reels. It's about the ruling class manipulating the baseline of what society consumes, so their specific worldview simply becomes the default reality. They don't have to burn the film. They just make sure the legal distribution channels are too terrified to host it.
Terrified by lawsuits, you mean?
Yes. During Daniel's study, over 100 U.S. participants simply couldn't access these films because mainstream platforms had strictly prohibited their screenings.
See, you're assuming those platforms are acting in, political obedience to the elites, but it's actually just corporate math.
Corporate math?
Yeah. If elites truly monopolized culture, independent filmmakers wouldn't be able to fund or create these projects to begin with. The lack of mainstream distribution isn't a coordinated elite censorship syndicate. It's driven by institutional market friction.
Okay, but
A streaming platform looks at a controversial film, weighs the potential subscriber engagement against the cost of a multi-million-dollar defamation lawsuit, and their legal department quietly kills the deal. They aren't trying to protect the politician. They are protecting their bottom line.
But regardless of whether a film is blocked by a direct government ban or by intimidating a corporate legal department into self-censoring, the end result is exactly the same.
Fair point.
The general public cannot easily engage with the critique. If rendering a film functionally inaccessible is achieved through market friction, well then market friction is just the modern tool of censorship.
I get that, but you have to ask what happens when the public actually does engage with it. Let's look at those 100 participants in the survey who hit a geo-block.
Okay.
Out of that group, a tiny subset of 10 people actually went through the trouble of bypassing the blocks to watch the films. And here is the kicker. 7 of those 10 reported that, after viewing, they would consciously go out of their way to avoid political content in the future.
Wait, really? So the films actually repelled them from political engagement?
Exactly. The sheer friction required to hunt down the film, combined with the heavy, cynical reality of the content itself, it didn't spark a political awakening. It exhausted them.
Wow.
Right. Elites might not even need to successfully censor these films because the media environment inadvertently fosters political apathy. The films disillusioned the viewers instead of mobilizing them.
Well, the disillusionment is definitely a real factor. But I would argue that those initial acts of legal threats and distribution blocks are still deliberate tools of suppression. They set the tone.
They do set a tone, yeah.
They creating that friction in the first place. Elites guarantee that only the most dedicated viewers will ever see the film, which severely limits its political impact.
And I maintain that the institutional friction of the platforms, combined with the ultimate apathy of the viewers, are the true limiting factors. The river of media still flows, even if the public decides the water is too exhausting to drink.
We certainly agree that pop culture is a formidable tool of soft power.
Oh, absolutely.
The tension really remains in whether top-down hegemony or bottom-up resistance ultimately defines the space. There is clearly much more nuance to explore in Daniel's research.
For sure.
But for now, we leave you to consider whether the screen is buffering because the censor cut the cord, or simply because the corporate system itself is afraid of the legal bandwidth.